I finally got invited into Sword Art Online, which sounds exciting until you remember the entire premise of Sword Art Online is, congratulations, you're now trapped here forever. So first, thank you to Bandai Namco for letting me play a few hours of Echoes of Aincrad early. Second, thank you for letting me log out afterwards.
If I die in the game, I'll die in real life.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Dollar Games, and today I want to talk about Echoes of Aincrad, the new Sword Art Online JRPG from Bandai Namco. I was lucky enough to get a few hours of hands-on time with the game thanks to Bandai Namco, so a huge thank you to them for giving me the chance to check it out early. I only played a slice of the game, and there's still a lot I don't know about the full experience, but I did get enough time with it to talk about the general structure, the combat, the customization, the world, and what kind of player I think this game might appeal to. Now, I think this game is an interesting intersection for a lot of people who are into JRPGs and also love anime. I know that doesn't apply to everyone, but on the Venn diagram, you will definitely find those two interests connected. I never really got into the previous Sword Art Online games, to be honest. They always just seemed a bit low budget to me, and not in a charming way. So going into this preview, I wanted to see if this was a game that could do justice to the anime it was based on, while also being a well-made RPG on its own. Ultimately, I walked away feeling positive about the demo, but it definitely has some issues, and depending on what you want out of this kind of game, those issues might be a deal breaker. Before we get into the preview though, if you enjoy my content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I just hit 2,000 subscribers, and I want you all to know how much I appreciate your support. Next stop is 5,000 subscribers, so let's do it, and with that, let's get into it. So let's start with the basics. Echoes of Aincrad takes us back to Aincrad, the floating castle that started the whole Sword Art Online story. And that alone is probably going to be a big selling point for a lot of SAO fans. Aincrad is still the most iconic setting in the series, and in this game, you are basically playing through the first season of Sword Art Online. But instead of playing as the main character of the anime, Kirito, you get to create your own character and try to make it to the top floor of Aincrad to then get out of the game. And if you don't know the anime, the premise is that the creator of the game, Sword Art Online, traps all the players within the world. If their family tries to remove their VR headsets, they die. And if they die in the game, they really die. So death is a real threat in this so-called game now.
You must die!
So in this demo, I had access to 2 saves, plus a blank save where I could play through the opening tutorial dungeon. I wasn't allowed to capture footage from the tutorial dungeon, but it was pretty straightforward, so I don't think you're missing anything major from that section that I can bring up in this preview. The other 2 saves took place after the tutorial dungeon. One of them was set right before everything goes to hell in the Sword Art Online, and the other one was a bit later after you've gained some levels and the difficulty starts to ramp up. Now, my initial impression from the opening of the game is that this is definitely on another level in terms of budget and quality compared to previous Sword Art Online games. Everything looked great, and the character movement and combat felt incredibly smooth. So right away, I was impressed that we at least had this baseline of a well-made game. Now, I don't know if that continues throughout the full experience, but based on this preview, I can safely say you probably won't be disappointed with how the game feels when you actually play it. In terms of presentation, I think the graphics and the character models look great. The game had me go through a character builder at the beginning of one of the sections, and the amount of variety you can mix and match was definitely great. So if you're into building unique characters, you'll probably be a fan of it here. And the graphics in general have this great anime aesthetic, and everything looks high quality to me at least. I especially like that as you walk through the cities, there are actually a bunch of people walking around, so the cities do feel lived in. But at the same time, I didn't notice much in the way of interacting with NPCs or finding extra things to experience in the city, outside of going to a smith to create weapons and equipment, or stopping by the local pub and inn. I'm not gonna lie, that lack of things to do is going to be a theme, but I'll get more into that when I talk about the gameplay. Outside of the visual presentation, I also really enjoyed the voice acting and sound design. Everything sounded clean and fit the tone of the game really well. The voice performances worked for me and nothing felt awkward or out of place. The sound effects during combat also helped give the action a nice sense of impact. Overall, I had no real complaints in this area and I didn't run into any noticeable audio issues.
Was that the last of them? Look! A treasure chest!
Alright, so gameplay is truly why you're all here. The game looks and performs well, but is it actually a cohesive experience and fun to play? Let me run you through the play-by-play experience and thought process I had while playing this. When I first started up the tutorial dungeon, I was pleasantly surprised by how well this game played. The movement was super tight and felt like something you'd expect from a modern AAA action game. One of the things I could never get used to with the older SAO games was the stiff combat. It truly didn't feel fun to play, and it always felt like they didn't put much of the already low budget into making the gameplay a major selling point. Thankfully, that seems to have changed with this game. It feels like they put a lot of their budget into the visuals and battle mechanics. Now when it comes to the mechanics, you've got a lot to pay attention to while you're playing. You can run as long as you want when you aren't in battle, and believe me, you'll be running a ton as you make your way across the screen to get to the next quest marker. But as soon as you get into battle, things change. You have a stamina meter, and you can only run, attack, or dodge so much before it runs out, and you have to pause to build the meter up again. This definitely forces you to be mindful of your battle strategy, so you don't end up in a situation where you're getting stomped on by an enemy and can't get away. Now in terms of the battles, you can run around, jump when you need to, dodge if you have to, and use light attacks or strong attacks with the shoulder buttons. It's been a hot minute since I've had to use shoulder buttons for attacks, so I had to get back into the groove of things. But once I adjusted, it definitely felt great. You can balance holding down strong attacks to break enemy shields, then follow up with a barrage of light and strong attacks once they're vulnerable. It all feels really smooth and the combat has a nice rhythm once you start getting comfortable with it. Outside of the battles, you've got some things you can focus on to adjust your character, and one of the great things about this game is the ability to create just about any build you want. There is a great assortment of weapons and gear, along with the ability to respec your character as often as you want so you can try out different playstyles. Inside your room at the inn, you have access to a menu where you can manage things like your ability points, equipment setup, and your companion's weapons as well. One thing I noticed though is that you can't really change your equipment while you're out on a quest or running around town. You can only do that in your room at the inn, which is not the most streamlined system. I kind of wish they allowed you to change things up wherever you are, because having to go back to your room for that can make these moments feel like a slog. So once you've got yourself and the party equipped and ready, you can leave the inn and head over to this altar type place to accept a quest. You can't really leave town or do much until you start a quest, and doing that triggers a way for you to teleport to the starting location. From there, you'll be heading across a giant map to get to the final quest marker, which I'm assuming probably leads to a boss. I didn't actually get to the boss, but that was because I was running around trying to see if there was any secrets or extra things to find. There really wasn't much there outside of a chest or two along the way. But of course you aren't allowed to see the whole map right away. After Breath of the Wild, that just isn't allowed anymore. So naturally, you have to find these areas where you can trigger a device and open up sections of the map as you go. I loved running around the land because it just felt great and looked great, but after a bit of time, I realized there just wasn't a lot to it outside of enemies and running towards your destination. Between the starting point and the ending destination, there isn't much to interact with, and it's a long trek between them. So I definitely started to feel fatigued from moving in a straight line for way too long. The battles were nice little breaks, but the enemy selection was pretty slim, so I ended up fighting a lot of the same things over and over again. So after a few hours with the game, I walked away feeling pretty positive overall. This is easily the best a Sword Art Online game has felt to me from a gameplay and presentation standpoint. The movement feels very smooth and the combat has that nice rhythm, and the character customization seems like it could give players the opportunity to roleplay the first season of SAO. But I do think the game still has some things it needs to prove. The biggest issue for me was the actual quest structure and exploration. Running around the world feels great and I really like the look of the environments, but there just wasn't a lot to interact with from what I played. When you're spending that much time moving from one objective to the next, you need more things to discover along the way. Otherwise, it starts to feel just a little empty. The enemy variety is another thing I'm curious about. The combat is fun, but if I'm fighting the same type of enemies over and over again, that could become an issue in the full game. But hopefully in the full game, as you get further in, it will introduce more enemy types, more interesting encounters, and more reasons to really experiment with your build. But even with those concerns, I still think this is a promising first impression. If you're a Sword Art Online fan, I think this is absolutely worth keeping an eye on. If you're someone who isn't really into SAO, but you like action RPGs, I still think there might be something here for you. The real question is whether the full game has enough variety and depth to keep the combat loop interesting over time. For me, I'm definitely more interested now than I was before playing it. I went in curious but also a little skeptical because of my experience with older SAO games. But after the preview, I do think Echoes of Aincrad has the potential to be the Sword Art Online game that finally gets me to stick around. Huge thank you to Bandai Namco for giving me the chance to check this out early. Let me know in the comments if Echoes of Aincrad is on your radar. Are you a big Sword Art Online fan, or are you just waiting to see more before you decide? And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.